Hi, seventh graders, and welcome. Today we are going to look at the geography of Rome. And so on your guided notes, you should have that packet. You want to write the I can statement. I can identify the geographic features important to ancient Rome. All right, so where in the world is Rome? Well, it's on the peninsula of Italy. So if we look at our world map, that's right here. It's just in southern Europe, and that's where it's located in the world. Now, if we do a little bit more of a zoom in, this is Italy. So Italy is a large peninsula. It's known as the Boot. It's to the west of Greece, so Greece is right over here. It is south of Europe, so here are some modern day European countries. France and Spain are over here. We've got Germany up here. And then we've got Africa down here. So it's just kind of northeast of Africa. So in your guided notes, go ahead and sketch Italy below and just give a little description about where Italy is located. All right, now Rome. I want to make it very, very clear that Rome is not Italy. They're two very separate things. The only reason that we use Italy in this video is because that just helps give you a frame of reference based on today. But there was no Italy back during the time period that we're talking about. So the big circle represents where Italy is, but the blue circle, the small one, represents Rome. Whoops. So again, Rome is not Italy. Rome was a city-state, and it starts off really small, and it's actually surrounded by a lot of neighboring city-states with different values, different cultures than Rome actually has. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then on your guided notes, you're going to put a little star where Rome is located, right sort of in the middle of this boot area. And then you can write down the information about Rome is not the same as Italy, and that it was really a city-state. Okay, next we're going to take a look at some more of the actual geography. So an important piece of geography is mountains. The Apennine Mountains are this first mountain range here, and they actually run along kind of the spine right through the center of Italy. And they are really a barrier of invasion from the east and kind of the north up here too. But they really run like the whole length of Italy and sort of split it sort of into two parts. The Alps Mountains are also part of the geography, and they're in this northern part of Italy. So it's sort of a double barrier here that protects because people from the north had a hard time getting over the Alps, and then they'd have a hard time getting over the Apennine Mountains. The nice thing about these mountain ranges is, yes, they have some rocky terrain like you see up in this picture over here on the right, but in the lower right, they also have this really spongy, grassy terrain. So a little bit different than what we've seen before. All right, take a minute and pause, and I want you to think and respond. So besides protection from invasion, what do you think might be one positive and one negative of being surrounded by mountains? So you can just jot that down, one positive and one negative in your guided notes. And then pause, and then you can resume after you've written that down and go on to the next slide. Okay, welcome back. We're now going to talk about the Tiber River. So Rome was really located in this Tiber River Valley. So if we think of the River Valley civilizations that we've studied before, kind of the same benefits and the same reasons that they settled there. There were really three big benefits. So Rome is right here on the Tiber River. And so it was really good for farming. So again, that really good soil for farming, access to fresh water. It was good for travel, so you could get around to different places that you needed to get around, which led to being good for trade. So those were those three main benefits of the Tiber River. Now, there were some other body of waters that were important, some neighboring seas. The three main seas, and you can see here in our picture, is first of all the Tyrrhenian Sea. And that one really, you can travel to Europe on this side and then to Africa down here. The Adriatic Sea, which is in between here, it's the skinnier part, that really gets you to mainland Europe. So they could travel that way by sea. And then the Ionian Sea really was a connector between Rome and Greece. So these were really important seas that helped mostly with the travel and trade. And then finally, we've got this really unique kind of geography in Rome called the Seven Hills of Rome. So it did have, if you look, these seven kind of different higher ground areas, hills. And so pieces of Rome were built across these seven different hills. Now, they were natural landmarks at the time and it developed. And of course, it allowed them to be geographically defensive because they were on higher ground. But later on in the lesson, we'll get into more specifics on each of them. But at first, they were sort of different cultures, but then they all became one culture and were just different pieces of Rome. So I want you to think and respond. What is one benefit of building on top of a hill, and what might be a drawback? And you can kind of see the pictures here too of how these pieces of Rome looked on the hills. Okay, lastly, we're going to take a look at how the agriculture was affected by geography. So first of all, they had a lot of different crops. Again, they were in a river valley, but interestingly, wheat was a really important crop in the area of Rome. That was like their staple crop. They built, they made bread out of it, they ate it. And then barley, which is a little bit different than what we used before, barley was used to feed the animals. And then just like Greece, olives and grapes were important crops that were able to grow well in ancient Rome. Now, they also had animals that were important in this area. First of all, they had oxen. And oxen and horses were more of the work animals. They didn't eat them. The oxen were used to pull plows and help with farming. Horses were mostly used for traveling. So these were more work animals, but then they also had animals that they could eat. So pigs, again, so pork was a big type of animal that was useful, and then fish too. So their diets consisted of a lot of fish. So again, similar to Greece, but not exactly the same. All right, so to wrap it up, I do want you to compare Rome and Greece. Think about everything that you've learned about the geography. What are two similarities between Rome and Greece, and what are two differences? And after you do that, go ahead and share your answers with your teacher and then move on to the next activity.